Welcome everyone to another edition of the Creator Tech Connect series. For people who have joined to the Creator Tech Connect series for the very first time, let me give you a small introduction into what is Creator Tech Connect series. The Creator Tech Connect series is a month-on-month free webinar that we conduct where we concentrate on the technical nuances that are there in the Creator platform. Now we'll be showing the demonstrations with key pointers, and we'll be discussing all the important topics that are related to the creator platform. Hi, I'm Sai Kumar Muralidharan. I'll be your trainer for today. I'm part of the Zoho Creators training team. Before we get started into the session, there are few housekeeping rules to be followed. All attendees will be on mute at all times. Please post your questions in the questions tab in the top left so that it is easier for us to answer all your questions and we won't be missing out any questions as well. A recording of this session will be sent to all the registrants so that you can revisit the topics that we are covering and the content that we are giving. Please participate in the polls and surveys that are being conducted in between or at the end of the session so that we can get an understanding of what you would require as sessions to be run in the coming months as well. Thank you all for your participation and supporting us regularly. And let's get started with today's topic, which is Active Directories and SAML authentication. Now, before I get into the topic, I would also like to show you a new course that we have started. My co-trainer would be sharing the link for that course. Now, if you want to revisit the recordings of all the previous sessions that we have taken in this year, you can go ahead into this link, sign up, and you'll be able to access all the recordings of the sessions that we have run this year. So this covers a host of topics like custom widget extensions, mobile customizations, rebranding, mobile SDKs, product release updates, and so on. So if you would like to revisit these topics, please do save this URL. You can pass it on to your friends for whom this will be useful as well. Then whenever you want, you can come back again and revisit. Thank you. Now let's get started with today's topic. Now with Active Directories and SAML authentication, you'll be able to have the governance part of Creator being seen in this session, where you will have the Active Directories and you'll be able to communicate between the third-party directories and the Zoho Directories. We'll be seeing how you can do all that. We will also be explaining about the SAML authentication and the advantages of using the SAML authentication. Now let's get into today's agenda. We'll start with the introduction to the governance in Zoho Creator. Then we'll understand the SAML authentication process, and we will also see how you can have the configuration done for the SAML authentication, and we will see with diagrammatical representation of what happens in the backend as well when the SAML authentication is being done and it is functioning. And we will also be talking about Active Directories in Zoho Creator. We'll have live demonstrations about each of the topics, and we'll also be discussing about few key pointers that you need to note while working with Active Directories in Zoho Creator. Now, for us to understand about the Active Directories and the SAML authentication, we need to have an introduction into governance in Zoho Creator, right? Now, before I get into the governance part, I would like to switch off the camera so that it is easier for you all to view the presentation in full screen. Now, let's continue with the introduction to governance in Zoho Creator. For people who are using Zoho Creator, you would know that the Zoho Creator platform is split into three major halves, right? The first one is develop, then you have deploy, and then you have the manage section. Under the manage section, you have an option called as governance. Now, we will be discussing what is governance in Zoho Creator. Now, with governance in Zoho Creator, you will be able to configure and manage users and their identities, and you also can regulate their session management as well. Now this is a one-time setup that is done by the super admin or the admin. Now for us to maintain and configure and manage the users, from Zoho Creator side, we have Zoho Directory to do it. Now let's see what is Zoho Directory. Zoho Directory is used to provide the user management and the security enhancements for the applications as well as the users who are added into the Zoho Directory. Now let's in detail discuss about the Zoho Directory and the advantages it gives out. Now first up, the most big thing over here is that you have a single source to manage all the activities of a Zoho account. Now let's say you have 100 plus users who will be using applications in your organization. In that case, you would want all the details and user activities to be maintained in a single place, right? Now this is where Zoho Directory plays a huge role. You'll be able to access and give out controls to all the users from a single place. It also ensures the autonomy over managing the employee details. Now with Zoho Directory, if you have let's say 100 plus employees who are working in your organization, and you need to have all their details as well available in a single place, right? Like their security policies, like their location details, as well as their credentials. All this needs to be maintained in a single place. Now this is where Zoho Directory gives autonomy over managing these employee details, and you also have multiple established standards and protocols that are available, like the SAML, which is a system for cross domain identity management, which helps us to achieve efficiency as well when you use the Zoho Directory. Now with Zoho Directory, it also ensures that the user data is updated across multiple domain controllers. And since you are going to have all the users in a single place and you are going to maintain it, the fault tolerance should be high as well, right? Now this is where with Zoho Directory you have an enhanced fault tolerance and preventing traffic congestion as well. Let's have a use case so that we'll be able to understand better about the usage of Zoho Directory. Now let's say you have an organization with more than 100 plus users, and the admins have to go ahead and maintain the employee repository, right? And you also need custom applications to be created, and those custom applications will be maintained by another set of people or a group of employees. And you also need a platform where you have internal communications being done, and you will also have different projects in the organization, right? Now these projects needs to be managed as well. Now in the Zoho ecosystem, we have a lot of products, and with the employee repository we have Zoho People, where you can maintain the employee repository in Zoho People. You can create custom applications with Zoho Creator. You have internal communications that can be maintained with Zoho Click, and with projects you have Zoho Projects to manage these projects. Now as employees or users in the organization, users will be using a lot of applications, right? Now if when they are using these applications, you need to provide permission sets, you need to manage all these users. Now this is where Zoho Directory comes in and plays a huge role. You'll be able to administer users. You can choose application, set the user roles and permissions, so that only a set of people will be able to access the required applications. And you also can define customized security policies depending upon your business and your industry. And you also can apply them to different groups as well. If there are groups who will be using sensitive data, you can have security policies created specifically for that user group. You also can provide single sign-on, where if you are able to sign into a single application, you will be able to sign into other applications if the access is given to the other applications as well. Now, you also can sync with the organizational's Active Directory or the LDAP servers. Now we have seen what is Zoho Directory till now, right? Now let's also see how Zoho Directory and Zoho Creator comes together, and what can you expect when you are using Zoho Creator. Now with Zoho Creator, you can administer Zoho Creator account users, and you also can create and customize the security policies according to your business requirements. And you also can sync with the organizational's Active Directory or LDAP servers. And you also can provide the single sign-on for org users as well. Now, let's look at one such option that is available in Zoho Creator in the governance section, called as custom authentication. Now, when you want to do custom authentication, and when you have successfully done the custom authentication, you will be able to sign into a single application. And if the permission sets is given for a multiple application, a user can go ahead and sign into one application, and they'll be able to access the other application without their need of signing in. Now, let's understand better about the SAML authentication or single sign-on process. Now, first, let's just imagine a user who comes in your organization, and he has to communicate internally by using Click. He has to also maintain all the project details in Zoho projects. He also has to access Zoho Creator for accessing the custom applications that are being used in the organization. And for all the maintenance of all the employee details and the hierarchy, if he has to check that, he'll has to get into Zoho People as well. Now, in this case, the user has to log in and use his password separately for every single application, right? Now, that is a big inconvenience for the user on a day-to-day basis. He has to remember his user ID. He has to remember his unique password for every single application, right? Now, this is where we have the advantage of using the single sign-on. Now, with the single sign-on, the user can sign in once by using their username and password, and he or she will be able to access all the applications that user is given permission to, right? Now, this is the advantage of having the single sign-on or the SAML authentication done. Now, when you have the SAML authentication done at the backend, let's see how this works. Now, first up, you would get into the browser and you would try to access a Zoho application, right? Now, let's take the same use case, and let's say a user gets into the browser and he tries to access Zoho Creator, right? Now, when he tries to access Zoho Creator, the service provider generates the SAML request. Over here, Zoho is the service provider. So Zoho generates the SAML request, and the browser redirects it to the with the SSO URL to the identity provider. Now, the identity provider passes the SAML request and it authenticates the user. Now, once the user is authenticated, the partner or the identity provider generates the SAML response. Once that SAML response is generated, the partner or the identity provider returns the encoded SAML response to Zoho, and you have the ACS verification done with the service provider. Now, once the response is being got, you will be able to access the Zoho application without any hazard. Now, from here, if you are given permission to a set of application, you will be able to log into that set of applications without your need to put out a password and sign in every single time. Now, for you to access this, you just need to get into governance, custom authentication, click on configure custom authentication, and you'll be able to access it. Now, let's get into a live demonstration where I would explain about the whole process of the SAML authentication and how you can go ahead and use the single sign-on process. Now, towards our left, in the Zoho Creators dashboard, you have develop, deploy, and manage. Now, under the manage section, you have governance over here. I'll click on governance. And when I click on governance, I have security policies where you can configure your password security policies, provide multi-factor authentication, and so on. With the custom authentication, again, you have option to configure the SAML-based single sign-on. And with Active Directories, you can assign user authentication and manage your Active Directories or LDAP servers. With domains, again, you can add and verify email domains. This enables you to, again, host your own email box with Creator. Now, in this demonstration, we'll be concentrating on the custom authentication part. Now, as soon as I click on the custom authentication over here, it would take me directly into the Zoho Directories interface over here. Now, with this, I have the tab custom authentication available over here, right? Now, before I get into the custom authentication part, I'll go back again into the dashboard and let us get familiarized with the interface of Zoho Directory. Now, in the dashboard, you have key informations like how many users, how many application, how many groups are being created, what are the successful sign-ins, are there any unique users added. All the data and reports are available over here with the chart format and the report format over here, right? Now, you also have other sections like organizations. Towards your left, you have applications. Now, with applications, you have list of applications that are associated with this user account. We have Zoho Analytics, Zoho Creator, and Zoho Flow available. With Zoho Analytics and Zoho Flow, as it comes in with Creator, you have these two available over here. If you want to add new applications, you can add new application into Zoho Directory by clicking on this option in the top right corner, where you can click on it and you can add other applications as well. We have a host of applications that you can add. Again, towards the left, you have users where you can add new users, manage these users. You have admins where you can give out roles and assign different types of admins. You also have groups that you can create. Now, let us come back again to groups later. Now, then you have domains and controls. Now, with domains and controls, you'll be able to handle the domains and also handle the request access for applications over here with controls. Now, with security, you have two tabs over here. One, you have the security policies where you can have your own security policies being created with the employees' passwords. You can have multi-factor authentication with different layers being set out. And you also can restrict the IPs as well over here by using the security policies. By using the custom authentication, you can add the identity providers. Now, for us to have the SAML authentication done, we need to connect with the identity provider, right? Now, in the presentation, I had shown you earlier that the service provider has to connect with the identity provider, right? Now, in that case, we need to first add the identity provider. For us to add the identity provider, I just need to click on Add IDP, the top right corner. And here, I need to enter the display name and groups over here. Now, for that, we'll first create a group. I'll get into the group and I'll click on Add Group in the top right corner over here. And I'll add a group as Project Management. Add the description as Project Management Team. And I have two options available, which is collaboration group or department. Now, if it is a department, it would belong to, all the users will belong to one department, and you can have multiple departments being created. Now, if you want a collaboration group of users from different departments, you can use the collaboration available over here, wherein users who belong to multiple groups can be added over here into a single group called as the collaboration group. Now I'll add the moderator and I'll click on this plus option over here and I'll select the user. I have two users that I have added for demonstration. I'll add Sai Kumar over here. I'll click on done. And for the member, I'll again click on this plus option, click on select user, and I'll add Sai Kumar Muralidharan over here. And I click on done. Now I have added the moderator and the member, and I click on add. Now the group has successfully been created. Now, once you create a group, you can do a lot with it. Now you can give out conditional assignments for that group, assign applications specific for that group alone. You can give out security policies and add policies just for that group. You can do a lot more with that group, where you can convert it to a department and so on. Now, once we have added a group over here, let me get into securities and custom authentication in the top. Now here, let's try to add the IDP. Now, when we add the IDP, first I have to mention the display name, right? I'll enter a display name as Zoho Directory Project Management. I'll choose the group and I'll mention project management over here. I also have options like excluding groups from using IDPs. I have the option to have the prioritization done for the IDP as well. Now you can have multiple identity providers, and you can have a set of identity providers with priority, so that you can prioritize them over the chosen IDP over here. And then you also have the configuration done with the SSO protocol, which is the single sign-on protocol. Now, with the single sign-on protocol, you have two options, SAML and JSON Web Token. With the SAML, you have the ACS URL available. Now, with the ACS URL, you also have other informations like the sign-in URL. Now, when we are trying to sign in with the identity provider, you will no longer be able to sign in with Zoho Creator or Zoho Directory, right? Now it would redirect to the uh, you would redirect to the provider over here. Now for that, you need to have the sign in URL, sign out URL, and the change URL over here. Now for this, you will have the identity provider who would be giving out the sign in URL, sign out URL. Now let me get into the documentation over here. Now my co-trainer would be sharing this documentation, wherein you have a host of identity providers who you can go ahead, if you have an account with them, you can go ahead and use the custom authentication over here. And this documentation would give you a step-by-step process of how you can authenticate with that identity provider. Now, we'll be using one login, so I'll use the custom authentication with one login. And you have a prerequisite over here. The prerequisite is nothing but you need to have the organizational owner and the organizational admin already defined, right? Now, once you already define the roles for the organization owner and admin, you can start with the authentication process. Now, let me get into one login over here. I already have an account with one login that I've created. In the top, you have the options that are available, like users, application, devices, and so on. Now, I have added users over here, where I've added multiple users, and I have given different application permissions depending upon my requirement. Now I'll get into applications and I'll create an application over here. I'll click on add app in the top right corner. And I'll search SAML and I'll select the option over here, SAML test connector, IDP. Now, once I select the SAML test connector IDP, I will edit the display name. I'll call it as Zoho test directory. And I'll click on save in the top right corner. You can also give out a detailed description, or if you want to add the fav icon, you can go ahead and add it. I'll just click on save in the top right corner. And once I save it, I have other options that are coming up over here towards my left, right? I have configuration, parameters, rules, SSO, access, users, and privileges. I'll click on configuration first. Now, when I click on configuration, I need to enter the relay state URL, the audience URL, and the recipient URL over here, right? Now, for this, let us get into the documentation that we had just now opened. And here in the documentation, we have the relay state URL available over here. I'll copy the relay state URL. I'll paste it over here. And then I'll copy the audience URL. I'll paste it. And here we need to enter the ACS URL. Now, for us to enter the ACS URL, we already have the ACS URL in our Zoho directory, right? So when we are trying to add the IDP, I have the ACS URL created. I'll copy this. I'll paste it over here. And I'll also paste the ACS URL validator and the ACS URL for consumer over here. Now that we have pasted the URL, we'll get into the documentation again. And here I have another URL called as the single logout URL. Now with the single logout URL, I'll copy this and I have to replace the last part, which is the Zoho part, with the last part of the ACS URL. I'll get into the single logout URL, paste it. Now instead of Zoho, I'll copy this and I'll paste it over here. Now, once I paste it, I'll click on save. And we have saved the directory over here inside our identity provider with all the information, right? Now, we need to get the other details from here as well, right? Now, we need the details like sign in URL, which the users will be using to sign in to Zoho directory, where it will be redirected to that URL. And when you sign out again, you need to have the sign out URL over here. For that, you have both these options available in the SSO over here. Now, when I get into the SSO tab towards our left, I'll copy the SAML 2.0 endpoint over here. I'll click on copy to clipboard. And I'll paste this over here inside the sign in URL. Now, I'll also copy the SLO endpoint. Paste it over here in the sign out URL. I'll again copy the SAML 2.0 endpoint and I'll paste it in the change URL as well. Now, once this is done, we need the verification certificate, right? You will have the verification certificate in the same SSO. Here you have view details. You will click on view details and you will get the standard strength certificate. You just need to click on download over here at the bottom and the certificate would get downloaded. Now, once you have the certificate downloaded, I'll click on certificates. And let me get back again into the verification certificate over here when I am adding the identity provider. And here I have the certificate. I will open it. and I just need to click on save over here. Now, once I save it, I have a pop-up that comes up which says I will no longer be able to sign in using Zoho Directory credentials. Since we are creating a connection between the identity provider and the service provider, we will not be able to access the service provider's credentials any longer. So I'll just click on add, and the IDP is added over here. Right now, let me get back to the presentation over here, and let me explain what we have done till now. Now, we have generated the SAML request, and we have part the SAML request, and the user is being authenticated when he or she is using the password to join. Right now, we also have created the connection by using the ACS URL, and we have the verification certificate also uploaded. Now with this, let me get back to the application over here, the one login. Here I have users, right? I'll get into users, and I'll get into one of the user, and I'll assign the application. I'll click on applications over here, and I'll assign the application that we have just now created. And I click on continue, and I click on save. Now, once I click on save, I have this application connected over here as well, right? Now we have the application connected to the user. Now let us go ahead into Zoho Creator. I'll just copy this URL, and I'll open an incognito window. I'll paste it. I'll enter. And here I'll try to sign in using the ID that we just now gave permission to, zohotest.com. I'll click on next. Now, if you see in the URL from Zoho Creator, it is redirected to the one login URL, right? Which is the identity provider. I just need to again enter the details. I'll click on continue. I'll enter the password. Now, it will allow us to log into Zoho Creator over here, right? Now, if you have permission to log into other applications as well, you can just get into other applications. For example, I have given permission to Flow for this user. So I just can add flow.zoho.in. Now this would open up the creator admin over here. Like this, you can create the connection and also open the and also help the users open multiple applications by having the SAML authentication done and having the single sign-on created for users. Now this would be very useful for the user, where it would be a great boon on a day-to-day basis, so that he can just single sign on once and he'll be able to access multiple applications. Now let's get into some of the key pointers that you need to note while working with the SAML authentication. There's few key pointers that you need to know while working with the SAML authentication is when you have multiple identity providers, you can have the identity provider that is higher in priority to be assigned to the user, and you can have the number of active IDPs. It depends upon the Zoho Directories plan that you are in, and all users that are being added in Creator will be listed in Zoho Directory as well. Now we'll be seeing that in the coming topic, which is Introduction to Active Directory in Zoho Creator. Now with Active Directory, you'll be able to you'll be able to have a lot of users inside a single place and handle all their activities, admin activities, give out permission sets in a single place. Now Let's say you have a third party directory that you already have all the informations of your company's users in. Now, in that case, you would want to connect with Zoho Creator and that third party directory, right? Now, let's see how you will be able to do that. Now, with this active directory in Zoho Creator, you can delegate that user authentication and management to the Active Directory or the LDAP server via the Zoho Directory sync tool. Now, this is a very secure way to manage the users within the Zoho ecosystem and store user identity and their credentials as well. Now let's see how this works. Let's say you have an active directory which is already existing, and you have all the user information in that active directory. Now, if you want to communicate with the active directory and Zoho Creator, you will obviously be using Zoho's directory as well. Now, once you make a connection between the active directory and the active directory, which is the third party directory, and the Zoho directory, you will have a two-way sync that happens, and that would be reflected into Zoho Creator as well. Now, how will we be able to do that? You can integrate a directory service with Zoho Directory, and once the integration is done, you will have to map the fields for user creation. Now you have the third-party directory and Zoho Directory, right? Now you have to map both. You have to map the fields in both these directories so that when a user is being created, it would be reflected in both the ends. And you also can set password verification methods as well, and you can enable or disable status sync. Now, if you want to access the Active Directory, you can get into governance, click on Active Directory, click on configure Active Directory, and you'll be able to configure the Active Directories. Now let's get into the live demonstration. And with this live demonstration, we'll be using the Microsoft's Active Directory, which is the Microsoft Entra ID. Let me get into Creator. And here we are still in the governance tab over here. And here I have Active Directory available, right? Now in the Active Directory, I can click on Configure Active Directory over here. Now, when I click on Configure Active Directory, it takes me into the directories stores inside Zoho Directory. I click on Add Directory over here, and I have a host of options that are available for me. I can click on the Microsoft Entra ID. I have the Cloud, which is the open directory platform. And you have Okta, which is again a cloud identity access management, which is a software service. And you also have Active Directory, which is a Microsoft product that consists of different services that run on the Windows server. Now, this is an on-premise service that is being run by Microsoft. You also have another option, which is the CSV as a source, which is also a on-premise option. Now, in this demonstration, we will be using the Microsoft Entra ID. I'll click on Add over here. Now, when I click on Add, it would start the API integration first. Now, I need to first copy the sync endpoint over here. I'll just click on Copy, and I'll save the sync endpoint. And I'll also save the SCIM token. Now, when both these are saved, I'll click on Next in the bottom left. And here, as I told you, you need to map the fields from Zoho Directory and the Entra ID. You can see you have a Zoho Directory over here. You have the Entra ID over here, right? Now, you need to map all the fields which are associated with both these directories for users. Now, once you have mapped everything, you just need to click on Save and Next. Now, once the field mapping is done, you have an option to create the user's password as well. Now, they can be sent an email OTP to those users. You can send OTP to admins, or you need not notify to anyone at all. Now we'll select the third option for this demonstration. I'll click on save and next. And here I have to choose if I want any changes that I'm making in Entra ID be reflected in Zoho Directory as well. Like for example, if I want to change the users, like activate, deactivate, or delete the users, I can reflect it in Zoho Directory. Or if I do not want it to be in Zoho Directory and I want it just to be there in Entra ID, that is also possible if I select do nothing. Now for this demonstration, we will have it as change in Zoho Directory, and I'll click on save and continue. Now we have the field mapping, the API integration, the password notification, and the status sync done. I'll click on close over here. Now we have the Entra ID added, right? Now let me get into the documentation over here, where, just give me a second. Yeah, so let me get into the documentation over here. My co-trainers would be sharing this documentation, which would have the step-by-step process of adding Microsoft Entra ID to Zoho Directory. You also have documentation which helps you to add the which helps you to use the other options that I just now showed you. Now we'll stick with the Microsoft Entra ID for now. And here we have done all the sync over here, right? Now the next step would be to get into the Zoho Directory account that I have created inside the Microsoft Entra ID AD that is available. Now here I have an option called as users. Now I have a list of users that are that I have created and connected over here, right? Now these are all the users that are available inside the Microsoft Entra ID. Now I also have the applications that I have created. I have enterprise applications that I have created over here. Now in this demonstration, I will showcase how you can create a new application, connect a user to that application, and I'll push that user from the Entra ID into the Zoho Directories account that we have. I'll click on new application. Now I'll create a new application over here by clicking on create your own application. Now when I click on create my own application, I have three options. I can configure the application proxy, which is an on-premise option, or I can register an application to integrate with the Microsoft Entra ID, or I can integrate any other application that I don't find in this gallery that is there. Now I'll just enter the name. I'll have it as Zoho Directory. I'll click on create. Now in the top right corner, you will have the statuses being shown. It is adding right now. Now once you have this application added successfully, we'll be able to assign users to this application. Let us just give it a second. Now you can see the application has been successfully added, and here I have users and groups over here, right? I'll click on users and groups, and underneath I have an option to add user and group in the top right over here. Let me just get back and show you. Here you have add users and group. I'll click on add user and group, and I'll click on none selected over here. And I'll select a user and click on select, and I'll assign that user in the bottom left corner, right? Click on assign, and one user has been assigned over here. Now once I have the user assigned, I'll have to click on provisioning. Now once the provisioning is done, you'll have the sync that happens live. Now I'll click on get started, after I click on provisioning, there are two provisioning modes. I'll click on automatic instead of manual, and I need the tenant URL. The tenant URL is the endpoint URL that we had saved, and I have the token as well over here. I'll copy that token. I'll paste it. I'll test the connection. Now, once the connection is successful over here in the top right corner, I'll click on save over here in the top left corner. And you can see you have all the mappings of all the users that are available over here. You can click on the provisioning, the Entra ID users over here, and you can give out user permissions for those user sets as well. Now, once this is done, I'll get back again to the main page, and here I have an option called as start provisioning. Now, once I click on start provisioning, it would automatically sync between the Microsoft Entra ID and the Zoho Directory. Now, we have already added one user to this application, right? Now, I'll start the provisioning, and once the provisioning is done, you'll be able to view the same user in Zoho Directory, and from there, you can assign different applications that are there in Creator as well. Now, once the provisioning is started, you can get into the Zoho Directory over here, and under users, you can see you have a new user that has been added over here, right? Now I can click on the three dots that is available in the right corner over here, and I have an option to assign apps. I'll click on assign app. Here I have one application that is available for me. If I want to add more application, I can add applications from this tab over here as well. Now I'll add an application. I'll add creator. And now here, as soon as I click on creator, it shows all the applications that are there in Zoho Creator. Now in Zoho Creator, obviously you will have a host of applications that you have created, right? Now all that will be reflected over here inside the applications. Now I'll select all the applications and I'll click on apply, and I'll click on done, and I'll assign one user. Now, once this user is being assigned, I'll get into Zoho Creator, and under users, you will see a new user being added over here, right? Now, this user was not existing before, but we were able to add this user over here from the Zoho Directory. Now, this is how you can push a number of users from the Microsoft Entra ID into the Zoho Directory, and from there you can provide access to multiple applications depending upon that user's need. Now let's get into the key pointers that you need to note. Just give me a second. Now, the number of active directories that can be added again into the account would be dependent about on the Zoho Directory plan. And when you are configuring users into Zoho Directory via the AD, you need to assign applications for those users in the Zoho Directory as well. This is what we did just now in the demonstration. Now, we have come to the end of our session on Zoho Directory and the SAML authentication. Before I get into the upcoming session, we have a poll that we are conducting. Please do participate in the polls and give out your views on if you would like to have a detailed session on Zoho Directories and the possibilities of how you can use Zoho Directories with the other applications and in your organization as well. If you are interested in knowing more about Zoho Directories, please do participate in the polls and give out your answers. I hope my co-trainers have shared the poll as well. Now let's also talk about the upcoming sessions. Now, the learning table series is an upcoming session where we would talk about the creator for healthcare industry. Now, this is again a free webinar that we conduct where we concentrate mainly on the industry use cases that are there with the Zoho Creator platform. So you can build a host of applications for different business use cases in Zoho Creator, right? Now we have taken one industry every month, and we'll be covering that in learning table series. And we also have the Creator Tech Connect series that is coming up. You can scan the QR code and register for that session as well. Thank you all for your participation and your support throughout. Meet you all in another Tech Connect series session. Thank you.